The latest fad to hit the pop world is bootlegging, the illegal production of records of music by top groups by backstreet manufacturers. These illegal records are made from tapes secretly recorded at live concerts by well-known groups.
People discovered it was quite easy to actually press a record. It wasn't a difficult thing. Up until before that, the big companies maintained it was some kind of secret process, which could only, only 49 people had the clues to. In actual fact, it's very, very easy.
Hello vinyl community, I wanted to do something a little bit different today, and I wanted to talk about bootlegs. And bootlegs in general are a controversial subject to some, and people have various opinions and attitudes towards bootlegs, and I'd really like to get your opinions and thoughts down below. But I wanted to talk about my history, and I gotta say, if you're passionate about music, passionate about bands like I am, everybody has that one band where they totally devoured their studio catalog and yet they want more. So for me, that band was Led Zeppelin. But I wanted to talk about a mistake that I had getting back into vinyl and buying a bootleg. But before I talk that, let's talk about the history. And I'm going to do it really quickly because it may not interest all you, but bootlegged music has been around for over 100 years now. It started with a gentleman named Lionel Mapleson, who took his portable cylinder recorder, phonograph recorder, into the New York Opera House, where he recorded operas and classical music. And so that was the case up until the 50s and the 60s, where you had, music enthusiasts that were recording classical music and jazz. But you're probably here to listen about the modern rock bootleg. And that started with this guy here. This is called the Great White Wonder. And two gentlemen were very passionate about getting this tape that had been circulating in the LA underground of Bob Dylan's music and pressing it to wax. And so this has several different recordings on it. It includes Dylan's work with the band, which was later officially released. And this was the dawn of the modern rock bootleg. Now, this is not an original press. An original press did not have this on it. And plus, you can see this is very basic. And most of the early rock bootlegs were issued in these plain white labels. This bootleg was put out by Dub Taylor and Ken Douglas, who founded the company Trademark Equality. But if you're interested in learning more about the history, there is a dedicated book by Clinton Halen called The Great White Wonders. And this is just a wonderful book that goes into several labels, the challenges of pressing wax secretly, experiences with the FBI and the labels. I highly recommend it. It is out of print, but you can still find it through sources like eBay. I wanted to talk a little bit about the terminology now. So if you're already a seasoned bootleg collector or fan, you're probably aware of this, and you can skip it, that's all right. But yeah, if you're not familiar with bootlegs, I did just wanted to lay out some terminology if you wanted to dip your toes into bootlegs. So the first one is AUD, or an audience recording. This one's the most obvious. I mean, someone sneaks a recorder and a microphone into a concert and just records it. Or they're using their cell phone today. But are audience recordings bad? No, not necessarily. In fact, some of the best recordings were done by this bootlegger named Mike Millard in Los Angeles, and the band The National actually recorded a concert using his equipment. And there's a wonderful documentary, which I'll link down below, which you can check out, on his recordings and the recreation with the band The National. The next one is soundboard. You'll see it abbreviated with an SBD. Now that is a patch into the concert soundboard, and you know, generally those are quite good, but not always. Next is a radio broadcast, and you could also lump in outtakes as well. Now these are tapes that, you know, someone had gotten from the radio station, or they had stolen from the artist and they pressed it on wax, and thankfully we got some insight into some great performances or some unreleased work. Now there are other variations out there. There is a MTX or a matrix recording. These are usually fan-based recordings where they have mixed the audience with the soundboard to try and create a more immersive experience. There are other means of, you know, getting that live concert sound. So there have been people that have been patched into the inner ear monitor that, you know, a lot of modern acts use, and, you know, they have recorded the sound being fed into the inner ear monitor. So there's a variety of ways, but those are just some examples of the terminology that you're going to see when you surf the internet looking for bootlegs. Okay, let's talk a little bit about quality now. If you're like me, you don't want to just settle for anything, and there's a lot of terrible stuff out there. So there's a lot of bootleg labels out there, and then they have bootlegs that bootleg the bootleggers. So I started out and I talked about the trademark equality, TMOQ. I mean, if you're digging around on eBay, you'll see TMOQ for trademark equality. In general, most of their stuff is really quite good. So what I liked about trademark equality is, you know, they got a little more advanced. They were pressing on colored wax, which, you know, in the 70s it wasn't the greatest, but, you know, they went for kind of an overall packaging. So this is the Yardbirds, and you can tell, you know, they went full bore with the artwork. Sometimes they put nice liner notes, and I like it when they went for this. So this is a piece done by William Stout, who had done some official record covers, but I like that they did that. Another label is the amazing Cornyphone record label, and if you're digging around on the net, you'll see TAKRL for the label. And here's an example of some of their work. This is a Fleetwood Mac live bootleg from '78. And again, you know, they put effort into what they did, and generally the quality is pretty good. This is a live recording. Is it the best? No, but it's decent for what it is, and here's a sample. Now, another record label that I'd like to mention is Rubber Dubber. I personally do not have anything on Rubber Dubber, but they are noted for this bootleg here by Jimi Hendrix, which is just this outstanding live recording at the LA Forum in 1970. Take a listen. Now, they used semi-professional gear to record this, and you know, if you see anything by Rubber Dubber, normally you're getting a pretty good sounding recording from the audience. So I recommend those three labels. Now, when you get into the CD era, there's just a variety of labels out there. One of the ones I recommend is Kiss the Stone. They did a lot of radio broadcast and outtake CDs. If you see them, pick them up. Resources. So what resources are out there for bootlegs? Now, the internet is actually the best source, and there are several fan sites out there that I can recommend. There's also a great suite of books that was put out in Canada called Hot Wax. And Hot Wax, you know, they document, you know, every bootleg that they could possibly get their hands on. They talk about the sourcing, the track list. If you can find a copy of these books, I highly recommend it. Now, for the internet, yeah, this has been my modus operandi for a couple of decades now. So I don't want to buy bootlegs. I would prefer just to download them off the internet, get them for free. It's not illegal to, you know, get this material. So, you know, I'm personally a fan of this website called Dime a Dozen. You got to set up an account, but there are people that are posting there daily with jazz, classical, rock, alternative, all types of genres are being put out on Dime a Dozen. Now, etree.org is another great site. There are bands that allow taping, like The Dead, Fish. There's a variety of jam bands that allow for taping, and etree.org is one of the best places to get bootlegs there. If you have a resource that I'm not aware of, definitely note it down below. So now I get to talk about my mistake. I got nostalgic. Originally, I told myself I'm never gonna buy a vinyl bootleg, but for whatever reason, I got nostalgic and I went for this bootleg here, which is a Zeppelin concert from 1969 at the Fillmore West in San Francisco. I didn't sample it beforehand. I thought I knew what show I was getting, and I was off by 3 days. This is a audience recording, and it's not the greatest. 3 days later, there was a soundboard or a more professional recording of the show, which is just fantastic. It features songs that have never been put out publicly before. That's the one I really thought I was getting, but I didn't. But here's the sample so you can tell what it's like. After that experience, I thought I'd hang up my hat, but a couple months later, this one was dropped, and this is a FM radio broadcast from Scandinavia, or a compilation. And this is just fantastic. It sounds wonderful. It was pressed on white wax, which is not my favorite, but you know, it's a decent pressing. Yeah, nostalgia got the better of me. But yeah, this sounds good. So here's the sampling.
I showed you, baby, long time ago. I don't want no woman, baby, mess around my door. I gotta move. Baby, 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 I've got to move.
Am I gonna get a bootleg again? Probably not. I'm content to just get stuff off the internet. But I'm curious, I mean, what's your take on bootlegs? What do you have? What do you do? A video, show me your thoughts, show me your collection. I'm really curious. I'm curious to hear other people's opinions about it. So please drop me a comment below and let me know what you think. And thank you for taking the time to watch this.
Have you actually caught anybody recording your group at a live concert?
It's in Germany. In Germany at a concert. And I think it was Munich. and they were recording it there. And what wasn't very good sort of attempt, the sort of microphones on broomsticks stuck up in the air, you know, that could be seen from the stage, and they would confiscate their equipment. I think the police arrested